All right, when you decided to pursue music, you didn't realize that you would be the content creator, the manager, the accountant, the booking agent. You didn't imagine that you would have all of those positions to cover because balancing every facet of the business can be overwhelming. And while managing those aspects of the music business can feel weighty, it may not just be the workload in and of itself that's stressing you out. It's probably how you're managing it. So today I want to break down 7 practical ways to reduce your stress while managing your music business. So the thing is, I want to set the tone with stating that we can't avoid stress. Stress is a natural part of life. Anytime when we're building something, we're creating something, it's going to produce stress because it's the unknown. It's something that we're not familiar with. It's new territory. So the goal is not to get rid of stress because stress is just, again, it's a part of life. But I would be remiss not to admit how stressful it is in today's new musical climate in comparison to how it used to be in the music industry for artists. Because we have to realize that over the last 20 years, the music industry has essentially flipped on its head. A lot of independent artists have power now. They can build businesses, you can have direct access to your fans, you can really create a healthy ecosystem around your creativity. But here's some interesting data. 73% of independent artists stated that they dealt with anxiety and depression connected to their work, spotlighting how structural pressures around how to properly manage a music career within today's current music industry is impacting their own mental health. So think about it this way. At one point, you had to just worry specifically about your talent. That's it. You just had to be great at what you did. And you got signed by a label would sign you and they would put you under contract. And I don't want to get into the stipulations of what that contract may be, but just say that they put you under contract and they would handle a lot of those things that today artists are handling. You didn't have to worry about how the album cover would look. You didn't have to worry about touring routes. You didn't have to worry about budget and finances to a larger scale, maybe within the band in and of itself during travel, but on a larger scale when it came to like product design, merchandise, shows, touring, percentages of who pays what to the staff. You didn't have to worry about that. But today, that is the context that most independent artists deal with. So that just puts a lot of pressure on individuals to figure out how to properly manage and structure their business. And that is not applicable to every specific artist, every specific genre. It varies, depending on your situation. And then many independent artists cite administrative overload, like day-to-day emails, follow-ups, show bookings, securing press coverage, social media asset building, website development, coordinating the logistical needs for events. All of these things and these logistical administrative needs has been cited as the number one barrier for a lot of artists. And that came from the media research in 2023. But on the flip side, here's the kicker. Despite these challenges, the independent artist market is booming. It's projected to grow to nearly 220 billion by 2030 at a compound annual growth rate of 6.5%. So there is a lot of economic opportunity for independent artists because there's now tools and resources to support us in our business. So that's the thing. That's the irony, right? We have all of these responsibilities, but yet there's a lot of income potential and there's a lot of revenue waiting at scale that we can get access to. But you got to understand about this concept when it comes to thriving. Based on how the new music industry operates, you're also still running the risk of being overwhelmed and burned out in the process because you as one individual, you're limited in your humanity, your capacity. You don't have the time of the day or the human energy to be able to manage all of these different facets of the business and do it effectively on your own because you're going to run the risk of burning out and being overwhelmed. So that's why I want to set the stage to talk about a 7-part framework that I think that we can implement so you can reduce your stress as you're managing your business. Because when you're in a stressful state, you don't make wise decisions. You struggle to differentiate what's important and what's not. you struggle to figure out, where should I be positioned in my business as a creative? Should I be focusing on, the business aspect? Should I be in the creative aspect? So we need to reduce stress so we can at least set the tone to figure out where we need to be in our business at all times in a non-stressful way. So here's the first step that I would suggest. You want to nurture your energy. You, as an individual, you're inseparable from your creative practice. If you aren't well within your own being, then your business is going to suffer. So constantly creating while being emotionally worn out, it basically creates a pathway to burnout, and it shows up much deeper than just tiredness or deep exhaustion. Your creativity, your joy is at risk of being eroded when dealing with unmanaged stress during the process of managing the business and still trying to remain creative. We need intentional time to set aside within the day to make sure that we're checking in with ourselves, doing wellness checks, checking in with God, to basically center our spirit and to be able to operate with security and wellness. So, one thing that I would suggest is you want to tithe the first few hours of the day. And this is just my opinion. You could take this principle and apply it at any point of the day. But I feel like the beginning of the day is when you're the freshest. It's when your mind and your heart is the most vulnerable. You're just waking up, you're just getting up, and a lot of things could neurologically impact you from the onset. So I suggest that upon wake up, you should tie the first parts of your day to really recenter yourself and really reconnect yourself and figure out, where you are. Pay attention to how you're feeling. Really get connected with God. Really begin to process your emotions from the beginning of the day, because you need to recenter and refocus on cultivating the fruits of the spirit. Having love for yourself and others, deciding joy, being at peace and kind to others, being gentle at heart. You want to be able to position yourself to be in a more self-controlled space so you can remain in alignment with what God has for you in your life. You know, this produces a God conscious life and sets you up to be connected and in tune to your value as a human being and as an artist and your messaging and creativity. You know, so you want to have this space and develop this posture to be able to connect with God and be able to really process your emotions and your feelings so you can be able to position yourself to approach your business and your creativity well. So that's number one. Number two, this puts you in a position where you want to narrow your focus. With dozens of potential revenue streams artists can go after, like streaming and merch, and if you want to get signed to a label, if you want label advance money, live shows, sync deals, it's tempting to chase all of that. But instead, you want to narrow your focus and decide on your business model to inform you of what you will focus on in your business so you can create and operate in clarity. So when I'm talking about a business model, I want to break it down in this capacity. I want to break down different components of a business model to narrow that focus into. So you want to think about this. What is your unique sound? Like, what do you offer creatively? What makes your music, your style, and your message stands out from anyone else? What differentiates you from any other artist? You know, what are the different groups of people who support and listen to your music? You want to be able to identify where these people are. Where do they spend their time, either in person or online? You want to be very intentional about the people that gravitate towards your music. What platform and spaces do you use to share your music and to share your brand? Because at the end of the day, each artist, they reach people at different places and spaces. If you thinking about a hip hop artist, for example, that focuses on, underground golden era style hip hop. Speaking of, the genre that came through in the 90s, you want to spend time in those areas where people consume that music. You'll find a lot of millennials on Instagram. You'll find a lot of millennials, breaking down long form content on YouTube. So it would just make sense for you to spend time in those areas. Whereas that if you're chasing a younger generation like Gen Z and you're trying to do more short form content on TikTok, it doesn't mean that it won't work, but it will just run the risk of it being not translating as well as it could be instead of spending time where those individuals are. And then you want to focus on how to build and maintain a bond with your supporters. How do you communicate with them? How do you create engagement? How do you create relationship? And then what are the ways that your music and brand generates income? Like where are the income streams coming from? Is it live shows? Is it merchandise? Is it a subscription based model where you have, recurring content behind a paywall that people can access to? You just want to be clear about how your music generates income. And then what tools and skills and assets do you rely on to make and release your music? What equipment do you have? Do you need a budget to go in studio? Do you have a home studio? You just want to assess what resources you have to create the product. And then what are the main actions that you need to take to create, perform, and promote your music? So what are the daily activities do you need to do? Do you again, do you position yourself with recurring content on YouTube, behind the scenes studio sessions? Do you do, monthly recurring live events where you can congregate with your audience in person? What are those main actions and activities that you do? And then who are the people and the organizations that help you grow your career? Like where are your collaborations, your partnerships? Who do you work with? Where are your partners? You may be an artist and you may be good at branding, but you may not be that good at finance. Do you have a partner in place? Do you have people in place that can help you in that area so you can be able to operate holistically as an artist, whereas that you're operating in a fragmented way? And then what are the expenses that come along with producing, performing, and promoting your music? So you got to count the costs because at the end of the day, you can't operate in the red too long before things start going awry. So you want to be able to figure out how you want to operate, and you want to operate and you want to check those expenses and fine tune them. You want to go through them, make sure that you're not wasting cash in areas you don't need to, making sure that you can figure out what more areas you need to invest in. What if a song is doing well? Should we be investing more into that song? Should we be paying for advertisement? Just figuring out the day-to-day expenses and then the overarching expenses it takes to really, fund your music career. Because with this business model, you can basically filter out and reduce projects ASAP that don't align with your business model. Because you don't want to spend time focusing on areas that create waste. And once you can go through these different steps of the business model, then you know what to say yes to and you know what to say no to. And that's the position that you want to be in as an artist so you can reduce your stress and be able to focus on the work that matters. So that's number two. Number three, you want to nourish your knowledge. So knowledge isn't power until it's applied. You want to spend intentional time weekly dedicating to learning more about your craft and the music industry. Be intentional about learning to give yourself, further business acumen and increase creative capacity. This positions us to become greater than we were before in all aspects of our creativity and business to position us to evolve with the times. So you want to set aside pre-dedicated time weekly to develop more of your creative skills, your business acumen, and knowledge around the music business. The music business today, and any industry today more than ever, is growing at a rapid rate. This is not 20, 30, 40 years ago where disruptions in the industry, it took a while. If you want to talk about pre-internet, you had a lot of businesses set in stone. No matter what industry we're referring to, they had a long standing time in that particular industry because growth and disruption in the industry took a lot of time. A lot of companies weren't as mobile, they weren't as agile, they operated in a more corporate manner. But today, your business can get uprooted in a matter of minutes. And I'm being dead serious because technology is moving so fast, it's moving so quick, and people's consumption patterns are moving so fast that you got to be on top of it. You got to understand how the music industry is working. You got to understand how people are consuming music. You got to understand where people are spending their time engaging in music so you can better position what you have to offer. So you want to invest in developing more business skills. Again, learn how to run your career in the form of a business, not just being an artist. You want to streamline your music process. You want to find faster and smarter ways to be able to release your music to the public. You want to learn from industry leaders. You want to read books and listen to podcasts that sharpen your mindset and the business skills that increase productivity. You want to become better at marketing and sales. At the end of the day, one of my professors told me a long time ago, he said, if you want to boil down business to one thing, it's about solving a problem. And at the end of the day, if nobody is buying what you have to offer, it's not a business. So you want to be very aware of marketing and sales. You want to get better at promoting your music with the intention of turning casual listeners into paying customers. So make that commitment to dedicate intentional time weekly to apply what you learn into your business. Because this is how stress gets reduced. Applied knowledge, it helps us become wiser and make wiser decisions in the business. You eliminate costly trial and error practices while also increasing our confidence to grow and build in our business. And that's what you'll notice over time. The more you become skilled in what you do, the more you become aware of how the music industry operates, the more confident you get. And confidence is just really trust. It's trusting in self. It's saying that I'm aware, I know, and I'm intentional about what I understand about the music business. If you see someone operating in their music business in a non-confident way, chances are there's knowledge gaps, there's wisdom gaps, and there's things in place where a person is not really secure that they know, which is causing the insecurity and the non-confidence. So you want to be able to just keep filling yourself up with this wisdom and knowledge and applying it into your business so your confidence can continue to evolve in what you do and into your practice. And then number 4, you want to navigate your time. Time is finite. We as human beings, we're a limited resource. And as we build up our music business, we're going to work multiple positions within our business by default at the onset. So this is going to force us to become reactive in areas that we're not necessarily paying much attention to. So just for a very easy example, I would say is if you spend all of your time creating music, all of your time just in the studio, then you release that music, but you spend no time understanding marketing, sales, branding, product positioning, then you're going to run the risk of that music falling flat or falling on deaf ears or not reaching the people that it's intended to reach. Because we have to balance today. We have to understand the creative aspect and the business aspect. There's no getting around that. Unless you got money and funds and resources to hire people that could do that for you, in most cases, most independent artists starting off do not, you need to learn those two aspects and you need to balance them accordingly. Because you want to think about it this way. If we operate with a stagnant and inferior strategy, we're going to be unable to meet our goals that we set out to do. So because there's so much at play, because there's so much to manage, because there's so much to think about in the business in and of itself, we need tools. We need a project management tool that can basically create and operate as a tracking system, something that we can check from day to day that we can look into to say, okay, this is what to do. This is what's important. This is what's priority. If you keep that in your head, or if you don't keep it systemized, you're going to lose track and something's going to fall on the wayside. But it's not just with a project management tool, it's more so how we structure ourselves as well. So you want to set the days of the week you'll work and how many hours you'll work on those days. Then you want to block out those days and hours that you'll be working for each day of those days of the week. So you want to already set up at the beginning, these are the hours that I'm going to work. These are the times that I'm going to work. And then you can start to have building blocks for where you can fit that work in. You can't just wake up and say, I think I'll do this today. I might focus on this tomorrow. It's not going to work. You have to have structure around the days and times in which you'll complete the scheduled work that you have. And then throughout the day in real time, you want to begin writing down known and recurring tasks that come to mind. There's always going to be something that come up that's going to trigger you to remind yourself that this needs to get done. You don't want to rely on your own brain. You'll think about it, you'll meditate on it, you'll ponder on it, and then something else come up, and then that action, that task that you need to take action on, it'll go out of your mind. So the minute it comes up, write it down. Put it in a place where you can remember it and access it later. And then on that same day, make sure those known and recurring tasks are listed within your tracking system and indicate the days and times in which they are due. Use your tracking system to help structure and manage those tasks until completion. Because with a clear date and time planned in advance to complete known and recurring creative and business related tasks, it reduces what I like to call decision fatigue and ensures that your time is strategically accounted for and not wasted. Anytime you have to think about something that needs to get done, it's not just making a decision on it, it's pondering pros and cons around that decision. So you're thinking about the day, the time, the resource, what's needed, when should I do it, how should I do it. If you got a family like I do, uh, kids, you gotta, when they have to be where they need to be, where do I have to be in this day and that day. It'll just create all of this confusion. And as you get to the point where you make a decision, notice how you feel after you went through that. You're probably tired. You're mentally tired. So having clear dates, times, and structures in a tracking system, it takes all of that extra energy out of the way, and you can begin to make decisions very quickly. If you know someone is trying to get you in alignment to do something in your business, and say it's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, unless it's pressing, or unless it's something you already agreed upon, it's not within the time you scheduled to work. You know what to say no to. No, not today. I can fit this in tomorrow. Because at the end of the day, all of this energy ciphering, it adds up. And the next thing you know, you're overwhelmed, you're stressed, and you're tired. So this tracking system is very important because you got to be very clear about when you'll do the work, how often you'll do the work, and the time in which that it'll get done. And then number 5, you want to normalize technology. Okay, this is gonna be a this is gonna be a razor thin line here as I speak about this in terms of where I stand on it. But this is how I wanted you to think about it. Don't be afraid to incorporate AI into your business for administrative heavy work, especially if it's recurring. So we need to get into the mindset of spending time doing directorial work rather than spending hours handling the tedious administrative tasks that need to come off our plates so that we can free up more time to do the actual work that moves our business forward. So don't take what I'm saying when I talk about AI as something that it's going to just solely replace something that you need to do. You want to look at it as a resource tool, because the more you can get off your plate, the more you can direct and lead and guide and be a creative leader in your business. Because if you get caught up in the weeds and you're constantly doing the small, busy work, you miss vision, you miss pivoting, you miss understanding and strategy where you want your business to go, you miss uh, providing leadership to other people in your team that need you. So you want to incorporate AI in a sense where it allows you to be more of a director and not getting lost in the weeds and doing the administrative work, because that's what's important. We're trying to structure and lead our business, not get caught up and get weighed down by it, by things that are, remedial and recurring over time. So you want to explore assistance with AI in these areas, such as laying out and managing your daily agenda, scheduling meetings, replying to emails, editing social media content, because offloading repetitive administrative works creates breathing room to focus on doing the actual creative work and directing your business. Doing so much busy work can make creating tiresome, leaving us with limited energy and focus to be as creative as we would like to be. So for number 6, you want to be able to network with intention. So partnerships need to be cultivated and aligned with your business goals and what you're ultimately trying to achieve as an artist. We need to understand and seek out partnerships required to help move our business forward. So you want to think about the concert promoters, the music producers, the venues in which you perform at, the booking agents, the music supervisors for licensing, the investors. These are all of the partnerships, for example, that I'm referring to when it comes to networking with intention. Because every time that you put yourself out there and you continue to grow as an artist, there's going to be more and more people trying to work with you, trying to connect with you. We can do this. Let's set up this event. Let's do this show. Let's work on this film. Let's do this activity. There's always going to be someone trying to work with you in that capacity if you're growing and evolving as an artist. And that's not a bad thing. But we just need some parameters in place so we can be able to understand who we should be working with and why we should be working with them, so we can, reduce our stress and reduce wasting time spending time working with partners that's not taking us where we need to go. So the way I would like to approach this is, you want to build a partnership map. You want to start off, and just for the sake of this conversation, we can just start off with 10. You want to evaluate a list of 10 people who can directly move your business forward in these particular realms. You want to think about business planning. So the goals, the target audience, the business model, someone who can help you in that capacity. Legal and financial, registering the business, keeping up with the financials, making sure that what you're doing is keeping you within legal compliance within the music industry. Branding, you know, and a brand is simply just someone that can help you position your art and your music where you can build trust with fans. You can build a level of respectability for what you do. Help you with consistent visual branding across all of your artist-owned platforms. Help you navigate, managing your social media platforms. Someone that you can bring in to help you with marketing and promotion. Again, defining your target audience, helping you developing strategies for how you actually present your music and promote your music to the public. Someone who can help you with product design, ideation and development, and the delivery of the product. Because at the end of the day, and we talked about this, kind of touched on this about how the music industry transitioned over the last 20, 30 years. You have to diversify your income. You know, with Spotify alone, you're getting like 0.00043 cents per stream, fractions of a penny. So the business model has to be able to have different products in place, and you need partners in place that can work with you to help you see your blind spots, to say, hey, maybe we can design a product in this fashion or for this particular reason, so you can diversify your income. And then someone who can help with pricing, helping you set fair prices for your products, figure out different profitable pricing models, because at the end of the day, revenue is one thing, profit is another. If you're selling, for example, a piece of vinyl, and if you talk about each individual piece of vinyl, if it costs you in totality, $25 to make it, but you're selling it for 30, now you have a $5 profit margin. That's not really a good margin in today's music industry. So you want to have someone that can help you figure out the margin of error so you can, increase your profitability. And then again, helping you establish secure payment systems, because there's nothing worse than someone that wants to buy something and you don't have the correct payment system in order for them to, make that transaction. That's money out the window. So you want to think about how people today spend their money and what particular channels and payment systems they're using. And so you can position yourself to have those things already set in place. And then someone that can help you in sales and customer service, the responsiveness to fans and customers, help you with the sales process. If someone buys something for you, how long does it take to get delivered? I mean, I don't want to buy a hoodie from an artist and I don't get it for the next 6 months. That's frustrating. You want to be able to figure out, what does that sales cycle look like, that sales process. Someone that can help you be able to, create a level of satisfaction for your fans. So when they spend money with you and they spend resource with you, it's like, wow, this is amazing. I spent this level of money. I got my product at this particular time. It's of good quality. It was a good service. And again, because we're artists and we're all consumed with different parts of the business, you can have someone come in and help you, see it from that perspective. And then when you think about networking with intention, you want to take the networking beyond social media. You know, again, social media is beautiful, it's great. We can meet uh, people on a global scale, but there's something about human interaction that we can never overlook. A lot of your partnerships may be at the next event you go to. It may be at supporting the next artist that you're a fan of. You just want to put yourself out there and begin to network with particular people. And you want to be vulnerable and ask for help when the relationship has been nurtured and developed. And then you want to schedule this. You want to have this as a part of your structure. Networking shouldn't be something that you do on occasion. You have to look at it and say, hey, what events are happening in my city? What's going on in my region? Where should I be positioned at? Where should I be networking at? And get yourself out there and go and have conversations, have talks, be in community, because you just never know, what can happen, that's cultivated from that relationship. Because intentional networking creates intentional opportunities, whereas networking without purpose sets the stage for chaos and confusion to enter into your business. Because again, if you're doing everything by yourself and everything alone, chaos and confusion will ensue because, again, like we spoke about earlier, you have limited capacity. You can only do so much. Even if we have the head knowledge and we know what to do, time is finite. We can only do so much. So we need help, and we have to be vulnerable in asking for that. And then you want to be able to negotiate wisely. Unmanaged and unstructured deals and partnerships create chronic stress. To reduce it when negotiating, we need to understand how we want to operate in partnership. And then we want to streamline the following. We want to define our must-haves up front. What are your financial thresholds? You know, if you're thinking about a show, what is the least amount of money you'll take? You want to have this stuff preset so when you start negotiating, you can reduce your stress down. And again, you know what to say yes to and you know what to say no to. If someone comes to you and say, hey, we can pay X, Y, Z for this show, but it doesn't align with your predetermined threshold, you can negotiate from that point. And if that person is not budging from that point, then it's an easy answer. No, I can't do it. And then it provides you a level of peace from the onset. And then you want to have well-defined partnership agreements. How are you going to share your workload with partners? Payments, investments, how much money is going into the business, how much money is going to us in salary. You want to have these things set up front, because one thing that I've known from experience is once the money starts coming in and you don't have these things set in place, then that's how a lot of arguments start to happen. That's how a lot of entitlement starts to press in, because a lot of people will start evaluating, well, I did X, Y, and Z, and you only did A and B. And then now there's confusion. Let's set it up from the beginning. This is how much we're getting paid. This is how much we're investing, and keep everything at peace. And then you want to figure out, again, you want to have access to legal help to help structure any deal if needed. Because in the end, as creatives, it's beautiful doing the art, it's beautiful doing the music, but on the back end, you need that legal help. You need someone that can tell you legally, how can you get into this contract, how you can get out of this contract. In the event something goes awry, these are the steps that you're going to take. You want to have that very clear. And then you want to streamline a lot of these templates, for these agreements and contracts. That way you're not drafting everything from the beginning. If you already have, again, preset thresholds, you can have these things already set in these contracts and have it on autopilot. So depending on who you're working with, you can just streamline it and tweak it and make it applicable to that partnership. Because preset boundaries eliminate last minute scrambles and regrets. You want to be empowered in your partnerships and not reactively operating within them. You want to reduce the possibility of structuring an agreement that stresses you out in the end once the deal is done. So again, I want you to combine this framework and develop a pathway to reduce stress in a way that serves you and your creative needs. Structure sets the stage to experience freedom. As independent artists, we don't have to sacrifice mental well-being to build a well-established creative business. So I hope this helped. I hope these 7 steps help this framework to be able to begin to implement it, to reduce stress, and to get you back excited about creating and being an artist and being impactful and effective in your business. Again, stress is not going anywhere. We're all going to deal with it. But with these steps in place, it should reduce it, should be more at peace, and should be more creative than you were before. If this helps you, I'm going to have this 7-step framework in the link in the description in the bio. Download it, utilize it at your dispense. It's yours to have for free. Take it, implement it, and I hope it serves you well. Again, I'm Neak. Thank you for watching. If this video helped you, share it with someone else. Until next week, I'll see you then. Be blessed.